Let's unmute it. Cool. Howdy. How are you guys doing? Leo and Spam Crew. Very good, man. Just gonna do a quick stream and then be with my kid and wife later. I mean, I still did some work today off stream. It's a lot faster, but yeah, I wanna, yeah. As you can see, my streams are like 2 hours long or whatever. So, oh, what happened there? Okay, wow, interesting. But yeah, that's how was your weekend, guys? Did you get any rest? Let's start the stream chatting a bit. What have you guys been up to? Nice, nice. You had a nap. It seems you're very tired lately, Leo. So it's good that you're taking some rest, man. It's important you take care of yourself. Yeah. It's really windy here in Copenhagen, so I took a little walk to Lidl with my wife and kid, and then we went to some we have this this bar nearby, right, literally in our street. So we went there for some food, and now I'm back. I want to kind of do a little bit of streaming, not too much, maybe an hour or two. And yeah, let me just give me 1 second. I want to kind of configure this a little bit better, because I built this layout yesterday in Photoshop. So I just want to make sure that, yeah, that's fine. That's okay. Cool. Yeah, that's great. Great. Okay, so so is music too loud? I guess music is fine. Just let me know. Let's configure before we start coding. Is music fine enough? What the hell is this, man? Music is perfect. Okay, good. Just give me 1 second. All right. Cool. Okay. Well, let's get started then. Let's get our hands dirty. So I'm gonna move this OBS over there on the top screen, and yeah. So I did improve sign up today a little bit more. So we're getting to the point, yeah, where I'm. So now there's a sign up button and a login button, and I think it's a little bit more clear. And then I've added some stuff here. I think this makes it. Numinex, my friend. Hello. Ah, good to see you, man. Good to see you. Actually, very happy to see you. How are you doing, buddy? How's life? Yeah, man, I haven't been streaming in a long time. So I started like, 2 days ago? Yeah. So even if you wanted, you couldn't catch me because I wasn't here. I wasn't here, basically, yeah. Nice, man. Yeah, I can see that you're into Rust a lot, so that's good, man. It seems you're enjoying it, so that's great, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm still kind of trying to stabilize this fully, and we're almost there. Front end now is nice, dude. Nice. That's great. That is great. Just need to do one thing here very quickly. And then we're gonna continue with some stuff. So what I've noticed here is, where is this stories? Yeah. Content widget. Where's the actual content? Oh, here. Okay. So let's increase this title to 15 because I've noticed a little issue. Title. think I made it to be in a single line always, no matter the amount of words. But is this actually correct? Am I opening the right thing? I think I am. Title 25, index, description, sentence. Yeah, so we have this truncate here. Yeah, I mean, dude, but absolutely Numinix, like Rust and these languages are made for exactly that, right? If you need this sort of performance, right? I mean, okay, it's let's say questionable if you need that type of performance. I trust that you do if you say so, right? But yeah. But I'm absolutely with you that yeah. You see, I'm writing a JavaScript, so we still need that. Okay, yeah, so this is the issue, right? This is what I wanted to check if this was in fact an issue with this component, and it actually was, right? So we need some sort of a Dima on YouTube. Hey there, man. Okay, so here I guess we need break words or something, right? To fix this, I hope, or something like that. Let's see, because it gets out of the component, which is really weird. Or maybe we need it here, break words. Nah, okay. So it seems that the truncate doesn't really work properly, right? And maybe, I mean, maybe it's even fine, right? Because maybe I don't want to truncate there. 25 gold. Wow, the old crew is coming back. The old crew is coming back. That's cool. Yeah, okay, so let's leave it like this. Let's just, I don't want to spend much time on this actually at all. Okay, so tests are still passing. I just wanted to do this very quick thing because I do want the title to go to the new line. It's fine. Thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Okay, so that's really it. Let me see if there's anything in Programmer Network project. Oh, and let me just smack the website here. Chica, my friend, good day. Let me just smack this link, sign up link on the top here. Okay, cool. Okay, great. So that's awesome, right? That's good. Is there something else that I wanted to check here before we do some of the other things? No, I think that was pretty much it. Was there something with the TipTap editor? I don't think so. I think that was also fine. This is fine. Yeah, okay. I think that's fine for the most part. Okay. So that's great. And if somebody has any questions, please ask them. I mean, that's why I'm here. I mean, to be very honest with you, just keep in mind, guys, that I will be streaming mostly because of answering your questions, meaning trying to get some of you to sign up on Programmer Network and stuff. So if you need any help, especially if you're early in your career, just feel free to ask. You know, I have a feeling the biggest downside of these streams, not mine, all the streams, is that a lot of people get attached to a streamer and then they feel more open to talk, and then people who haven't been there, they feel like, oh, this is foreign to me. I don't know this guy, right? So just because, you know, there's a bunch of people here that I chat with doesn't mean that you can't chat, right? You can equally do that, right? Okay, so let's just say break words in content widget component, right? So we're gonna do that. Yeah, man. I spent a lot of time on the UI when I was moving to TypeScript, and I think it's awesome. I like it a lot. I hope you see some difference as well. I truly do, because I did actually put in some effort to kind of improve it, and I like it a lot more, even though it's not drastic changes, even though these tiny changes I think are quite noticeable. And there, yeah, I have a few more UI changes coming there as well. Which post you mean? The thought, or I don't think, which one exactly? You mean the article, or because we never had that on the thought, I think. We never had the date and time on the thought. Yeah, I don't think that we ever had that. But we can add that, of course. I just don't think that we had that before. I'm unsure. I don't think we did. What did I want to do? Yale, I guess, right? Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So I don't think we're going to be doing work here anymore, at least. I mean, actually, that's a good point. And to be very honest with you, I mean, more reasons I have now not to add it, right? But yes, I get that because, I mean, at the end of the day, right, it doesn't really matter when it was posted, right? Because I would like to incentivize people. Because again, as I said so many times already, I mean, you guys are the only, even if the platform has any future, you guys are the future, right? So if you guys as early adopters don't, you know, if you, right, I mean, that of course proves few points, right? But again, not to repeat myself, yeah, I would appreciate if you can find 1 minute a day or 5 minutes a week and just, you know, just share something, right? Because at the end of the day, you invested yourself into this stream sufficiently enough, right? So what is Skyline? Skyline GitHub. What is this? Oh. Oh. Oh, cool. I didn't know that this exists, Chica. What is this? Oh, this. Okay, this is my GitHub. I get that. I don't get it. So what now? Is this like represents my commits and stuff in 2023? Oh, contributions represented in 3D space. I see. Okay, cool. Huh, interesting. All right. What about 2024? Is this the only thing I can see? Can I see anything else? Like, is this all? Can I like get to the town or whatever? Okay, no. 2024 AGJS, or maybe there isn't. Oh, okay, there's, got it. Cool. Okay. Well, let's take a look at that again. Give me a second. So I'm just gonna nuke that. I'm gonna install this again. Then we're gonna dev that again, right? Cool. Add annotations. Click on a tower to add annotation. I'm hosting everything myself. I'm not using any managed services at all. I can actually okay, so let's just spend a second talking about this. So let's discuss that for a second. So so the question is where and how, I guess, Programmer Network is hosted. So let me show you. Let me show you a very effective way, because a lot of you guys are talking about AWS, Azure, GCP, Google Cloud Platform and stuff. I'll show you a way, and I'm sorry to Leo. He has heard this thing many times. So let me show you the infrastructure of Programmer Network, and let me show you how you can do very intelligent infrastructure by paying $10 a month for a long time, right? It's even cheaper than yeah. So let me show you one thing. So if I go, so I'm not going to show you these files, of course, because they're private too. But so I'm not using it's. You can think of the way that I did things. It's almost like infrastructure as code, but not really. But I still did save all of my files. So let me give you some tips when doing infrastructure, right? So let me show you one thing. So I'm going to open up this Draw.io diagram. And I'm going to show you how programmer network infrastructure works, and then you can really use this for yourself, right? So as you can see, programmer network whole infrastructure is hosted on Hetzner. And if I go to Hetzner and I log in here, and I log into Hetzner, and I go to my Hetzner server, you can see that on Hetzner, this is my server. And I have 4 vCPU, 16 gigs of RAM, blah, blah, blah. You can see that it costs me around $20 a month, right? But again, if I was paying $5 a month with the current setup, it would still work because programmer network has no, yeah. So, and let me switch to this. Sorry, you're right. It says let's chat. Yes, I know. So let's try that again. So going back again to what I was saying. So instead of so let's just discuss this for a moment, right? Before we get into the diagram, right? So I think the biggest problem with a lot of So when you start a new project, right, you have no traffic, right? And that's going to be the case for many months, maybe even years, right? So technically, let's just say like this, no matter where you host your stuff, when you release a new product, it's going to be sufficient in 99.9% of the cases, right? Now, one of the biggest mistakes one can do is one of these two things. Number one, you can try to do your own infrastructure like I did, and knowing nothing about the infrastructure. So that means I'm going to go and set up my servers manually, but I don't know anything about it. So that's a huge mistake. So these are the moments when you want to utilize GCP, AWS, Azure, and some of these hosting providers. Even maybe heck, DigitalOcean has an app marketplace, right? Of course, I wouldn't say downside. When you pay for the cloud, you basically, what you're paying for, this extra money, you're paying for convenience, right? You're basically saying, I don't actually want to deal with infrastructure. I just want to focus on building my product, and I want to leave the infrastructure to these infrastructure services, right? When you go this path, where I went with programmer network, you can save a lot of money, but you replace it with time, even though I invest zero maintenance time into this because it's stable. But it takes a while to set this up. So let's talk about these two things. So again, as I said, you can go either the cloud providers like GCP, AWS. They take away some pains from you, but you pay a little bit extra. So you pay for the time that they take away from you. So this is how programmer network is hosted, really. So programmer network frontend is hosted on Cloudflare Pages, which is a free service. In my opinion, it's tragic that it's free for them, because this is so amazing. This is similar to, let's say, GitHub Pages, but a lot better. Why is it better, you might ask? Well, it's better because you have the whole Cloudflare CDN, WAF. Cloudflare is absolutely insane. This is the best thing. It has been for like 20 years now. So let me show you. So Cloudflare, programmer network, again, frontend is hosted on Cloudflare Pages. So my API and my frontend are basically decoupled fully, right? But you can see, for example, I have the security, I have the free SSL, I have full SSL, DDoS protection, and a lot more, right? So if we take a look here at the WAF, right? If we take a look at the web application firewall, right? And this is all free, keep in mind, right? You can see here that I have some WAF rules. So for example, if I go to my Grafana programmer network here, and if you go to that URL, what you're going to notice, that you're going to get blocked. Why are you going to get blocked? Is because I'm not allowing traffic from any IP ranges except my own, right? So you can see with Cloudflare, you get a lot of amazing free stuff. So you get this, you also get the web workers, and you get serverless functions for free. So you have these worker routes. So you can see, for example, if I go to the worker route, I have my sitemap XML, this sitemap router. This is basically almost like a serverless function here, right? And again, it's amazingly free. So if we go to the settings over here, and then we take a look at, if we actually go to manage here, where's my worker implementation? So yeah, but not to get into details of implementation. So if we go, because we're gonna have, this video is gonna be very long. So so my frontend is on Cloudflare Pages, and it's deployed there as well using the Cloudflare CI. So I'm not even using GitHub actions for my frontend. As soon as I push my front end to my GitHub repo, Cloudflare Pages basically handle that, right? So if I go back here and I go to Pages, right? This is my programmer network front end, as you can see. And even the CI here, as you can see, you have the staging for free. You can set up your staging environment. You have a lot of stuff. If we go to custom domains here, this is where you add your domain. As you can see, programmer network, they have these integrations, which is in the beta. I'm not going to get there. And then you have the settings here for your environmental variables, etc., 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 right? So that's pretty awesome. So that's where the front end is. Now, if we go back to the diagram, you can see that my front end is interfacing. It's calling the API, which is on Hetzner. And on Hetzner, I have a firewall in front of my front end and a CDN and all of that stuff. And then my front end calls my my backend, right? But my front end can only IP ranges which I allowed through my firewall on Hetzner are allowed to call my API. And the IP ranges that are allowed to call my API are Cloudflare IP ranges, right? So if we get over here, I'm saying on my API, hey API, only allow traffic through these guys, right? And how do I do this? Well, I have a firewall on my Hetzner where I'm saying, hey, only allow traffic from IPv4 and IPv6 IP ranges. So that's super awesome. So right, so we have Cloudflare, right? So this is really great, right? So this firewall here, this is my host machine firewall. This is the firewall on my Hetzner machine, on my host. Then I have Nginx, and then I have internal Nginx. So this Nginx doesn't really do much. It does some stuff internally. It basically, I use it for mostly for the certbot. So when I need to renew my Let's Encrypt certificates, I'm using Let's Encrypt for SSL, right? So this Nginx right now doesn't do much. It does some internal stuff. And then as you can see here, further on, we have the Fastify API, which is also running on API is running also, of course, on my Hetzner, and then my Postgres database as well is hosted on Hetzner as well. So everything is hosted on Hetzner, and then as you can see, I have my reporting stack on Hetzner as well. So if I go to my Grafana here, you can see I have the Grafana stack as well. I can check various types of things. I have my API logs. I'm using log rotate, and I'm using, I can show you a bit of that. So if we go to alerting, we have alert rules. Here we have some rules, right? So if we go to the rules, if we go to this specific rule here, and I'm using low-key. So if you're not aware, low-key is, I basically gather my logs using low-key. I parse them using, obviously, Grafana here. So let me take a look at that. So as you can see, so what I also have here, I have an alert manager as well. And whenever my API gets a 500, I send a message to my Slack channel that I have, my Slack, Programmer Network Slack. And this is free. Think of this as centric.js, just for free. So I have configured low-key and my Grafana and alert manager in a way where I can use it now myself as centric.js just for free, right? So if we go back over here and take a look at other dashboards, so I have the API logs, as you can see, and I can say, give me the logs, I don't know, past 2 days. I can see that there were some issues, and usually this is how so basically it's a log first development, if I may call it, right? Then I have my Postgres database that I can monitor as well. So I'm monitoring my database here. And in most cases, again, it's a very low traffic thing. But if you build an API that's struggling, it's usually the database is going to struggle, not the API itself. Anyway, not to get into too many details, so I have the whole Grafana Prometheus stack here. As you can see, all of these are Docker images. So every single one of these, CertBot is a Docker image, Google CADvisor is a Docker image. I use this Google CADvisor to monitor the performance of Docker images. Alert Manager I use to send basically alerts to my Slack. Prometheus, Node Exporter, Postgres Exporter, these two things are used to monitor my performance on my whole server, Node Exporter, and then Postgres Exporter is monitoring Postgres performance, right? So anyway, all of this stuff is running. Just to give you an idea, if we take a look at my resource usage, my CPU is at 7%, my memory usage is at 9%. So you can see basically that server is fully underutilized. So I'm paying $20, 20 euros a month. Server is fully unutilized. Why? Well, because programming network doesn't have traffic, right? Even if I had thousands of users, right? Concurrent users every day, these resources would still be underutilized. So why do I put emphasis on this underutilized thing? Well, it's because you can see that you can really, today in modern time of hosting, if you can set these things up yourself, you can really host things for pretty much free, right? Now, one emphasis that we have to put on is you need to document all of these steps. So there's a lot of stuff that I've done. So when you look at this, there's a lot of stuff involved. So these things work, networking, setting up Docker networks, exposing certain things, keeping some things internal, setting up a VPS or something, etc., 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 right? But, so I'm not using any proper infrastructure as code tool, but at the very least, what I did, I documented every single script and every single instruction. I have my firewall rules here. So UFW, right? So if you don't do this, good luck. You're gonna cry, you're gonna suffer. So if you decide to take this path, it's not hard, you can do it. Again, you start with one thing, you add another thing. So it's not that I built this in one go. Initially, I had a frontend and the API, then a database, then a load balancer, then a Redis, because Redis is also, here is the Redis. So it's not that I sat and did all of this. And of course, keep in mind, super, super fundamental, important thing. You don't need 90% of this at the start. So when I started, I had React, I had a frontend, I had an API with Postgres, and that was it. But then, as I started streaming on this Twitch channel, you guys would report bugs, and I would be like, man, it would be cool that I can actually see what happened, what actually happened, right? I don't know. I mean, some dude said I can't sign up. Why? And then I added my Grafana and my Prometheus and Alert Manager. So infrastructure is a living, dynamic thing. This thing might grow to 20 more services or might not, right? Right now, I don't need more of it, right? But you have to scale it as you need it. You're not going to sit and just add all of this for no reason, right? So no matter if you're an early age startup or whatever, you really need this and you need this, right? And then you go, okay, well, we need a reverse proxy now. We need to scale our nodejs. We need clustering. We need this and that. Then you add it, right? But no, you don't start here. You start here, right? So anyway, this is how it works. It's super cheap. Again, if I downscale the server to 5 euros a month, it would still do exactly the same thing. The great thing about this, when it's documented, is I can extend this easily now. I can add any other service very easily in 1 day or less. Why? Because I have every single step documented. As I was adding every single of those things, I was doing it one-to-one with my documentation, which is here, right? Of course, I can't open this documentation because it's very private, but you can even see that even my Cloudflare worker is here, basically. So yeah, so that is the program network infrastructure, and also a combination of self-hosting myself. Give me 1 second. Yeah, this is gonna go to YouTube. Yeah, this is gonna go to YouTube for sure. Yeah. Let me just answer some questions. Let me see if there's some questions. So I think this question, so Numinix, this question about cloud versus self-hosted or bare metal is really always a matter of perception and your situation, right? A lot of people, especially younger people who are building Hello World apps are going to say, oh my God, the AWS, GCP is so expensive, etc. But actually, it's so cheap long term if you have a successful product, right? Because there's nothing more expensive than paying salaries, right? So for example, we often forget that there's a huge difference, right, between what I just showed you. Because again, think about it this way. You have really, when it comes to infrastructure, you have two choices. You can cut down on your DevOps team by, so if you're using, let's say, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, your DevOps team is probably going to be smaller because one person can easily manage even GCP. If you want to have a bare metal machine, and when I say bare metal, I don't just mean self-hosting, I mean even having your own hardware. That is the most painful. So the most painful path you can take is having your own hardware, your own bare metal, and then self-hosting there. Least painful thing is to use, let's say, still the cloud, just a dedicated server, just some whatever. That's less painful. And then the least painful probably is the cloud. And the most expensive. But of course, the reason why it's expensive is because, again, it takes away the pains. And for example, it's not just that. If you take a look at GCP, for example, like Google Cloud Platform, right? You get BigQuery, you get Vertex AI, you have Dataform, you have cloud, like they have Cloud Armor. So when you're paying for some of those top-notch services like GCP, AWS, it's not just that it takes away the pain from you. It's a lot more than that. So for example, let's imagine that I need a data warehouse like a Snowflake or Google, like a BigQuery. I can't. There's no solution for me to self-host that, right? So there's a lot of benefits going with these super huge hosting providers, right? Because they also offer some amazing services. For example, when you think about GCP and Google Cloud Run is amazing, right? It has auto scaling. It's pretty cheap. Their Postgres managed service is also really cheap, right? So there's a lot of good stuff, and of course you pay a little extra, but you get a lot of benefits of using that, right? So depending where your startup is, this is basically always a discussion. What should we do? Should we pay for for something like that, right? So yes, indeed, your bill is going to be larger, let's say on GCP, but then relative to what, right? Because if you want to hire a good DevOps engineer, that's easily in the EU even, what, 90,000 euros a year salary, 100,000, right? So when you calculate all of the cost and all of that stuff, then it's yeah. But that's the battle between self-hosting and the cloud providers, right? No, Numinix, yes, you do, but you need less of them. That's the thing, right? And trust me when I say this, and I'm not suggesting that some of you guys haven't went through this. I've been part of companies where we had our own hardware, our own CI servers, our own whole thing. And I can tell you that cloud simply just removes a lot of this stuff away, right? Because on GCP or AWS, you can achieve so many things in a very quickly, right? Sure, it's true that you still need somebody to know things, right? But it abstracts a lot of, right? Yeah, absolutely. So you always need people, right? You always need people, right? The question is, what is less prone to breaking and how much it costs, right? Because at the end of the day, right? So I think Numinix at the end of the day, right? It's not really about so infrastructure is not a feature, right? Infrastructure adds no tangible value to customers. Infrastructure is like internet. That's something that's considered by users that must be working, right? So infrastructure, unfortunately, just like, again, internet, nobody wakes up today and says, oh, wow, my internet works. I'm so grateful. That is considered to be working. So when it comes to infrastructure as well, it's really, it's a business decision rather than a nerd decision, right? And the reason why businesses are moving to cloud is because it's simply more reliable in most cases, right? So it's more expensive, but there's nothing more expensive than your product getting hacked or working slowly or you having hard time scaling it and stuff like that, right? Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can get issues either way. So I'm not suggesting that moving to cloud or whatever is the solution and it's just everything's going to magically work. Of course not. It's just a matter of putting things on paper, right? And calculating how much of that is what is better, really, right? So that's why I say it's not that simple, right? Depending on your stage of company and what it is that you need. I think many startups can simply host things, self-host, as I showed you for Programmer Network. But if you're an AI startup, if you need machine learning, if you need something like Vertex AI, if you need LLMs and this generative AI today, then you're almost bound to be using some of these services, right? Ah, shit. Give me 1 second. I think I spilled the coffee. No, I didn't. It was already yeah. All right, cool. But anyway, that is my take. That is my take on it. You can do a lot of stuff and you have to figure out for yourself based on your competences, based on the time you have, based on the pain that you're willing to go through, what it is that you want. At the end of the day, basically the decision you're making is, how do I want to bleed? Do I want to bleed in my left hand or do I want to bleed in my right hand, right? Nothing is going to take away the work from you fully. In my experience, past, 10 or 15 years, I'm clearly not a fan of the cloud. If I would host this, but I just have to be realistic. And realistically, in my experience, is your reason for Node because of preferences of unifying the front end and back end or another? Let's just answer another question. So the question is your reason for Node because of preference or unifying the front end and back end or another? The reason for Node.js for me is because, in my experience, Node.js is probably the best API language out there in the world, arguably ever, when it comes to building things fast, right? So, for example, if I was building, let's say, a service such as RabbitMQ or, some messaging service, I would definitely use Go, for example, right? If I'm building a front-end facing API, like almost a proxy in a way, I would always use Node.js, right? Node.js is amazing. The thing is, when you go to YouTube, when you talk to people, especially nerds, they're going to tell you how Node.js is slow and this and that. That is that cannot be further from the truth, right? Because slow for what, right? Slow for what? Most people actually can never answer this question when I ask them, but was it slow for you? In your use case, most people actually never reach these scaling issues. So when it comes to choosing an API technology for the front-end facing API, you always choose what's the most convenient, right? Because at the end of the day, to reach a point where an API is the bottleneck, you really have to build a product so popular. Because your database, for instance, is going to become a way quicker bottleneck than your API, right? So I think Node.js is amazing in a sense that you can build anything very quickly, especially with Fastify JS and some of these super awesome frameworks that Mattia Collina built. So it's not really about unifying; it's more about just the convenience, right? Because for whatever you want to build in your API using Node.js, you can find a module very quickly. Community is insanely good. I think there has never been a language in history of programming that had so many modules. Like JavaScript, of course, it's not ideal. A lot of these modules have questionable quality, but that is simply due to statistics. If the language is the most popular, then of course it's logically to expect that the modules themselves are going to be like this and like that, right? So if you need to build a simple API or any API that's serving your frontend, I think Node.js is an amazing example. If you want to build some high-performance messaging service, a queue or whatever, then you would go with something like Go and stuff like that, right? So, yeah. Alrighty. There's no slow. I mean, again, PayPal.com is running on Node.js, right? So again, I actually created a video called. Let me share a video with you, right? I have a video on my YouTube channel that I'm called Influencer-Driven Development. I think you should watch it because a lot of you guys, especially younger guys, you're heavily influenced. You're heavily influenced by these Twitter gods and stuff like that, right? And I feel bad for you sometimes, some of you. I'm not suggesting it's you, but I have a video on that if you want to watch it. It's called Influencer-Driven Development. And many people are kind of a victim to that, right? You're a victim of people who never built really anything talking about performance, right? Like, somebody is going to tell you, oh, Node.js is slow. Well, what have you built in Node? Has Node.js been slow for you? Not some dude on Medium somewhere on a different continent that you never saw that he wrote an article about. Has it been slow to you? Well, no, not really, right? So a lot of these things, man, are just the nerds sweating over, right? It's just a bunch of crap. PHP still exists, and there's millions of websites running on PHP, right? So it's just ridiculous, right? Don't take me wrong, things can be slow, right? But things can be slow in any language, and if you make a mistake, right, of course that Node.js can be slow, Go can be slow, anything, but again, the fundamental thing is, in 99.9% of the cases, if your API is slow, it's not the API itself, the framework, the library. It's your query, it's the latency, it's your microservices, it's something else. You are normalizing data in a wrong place. You get what I mean? So there's so many reasons why your API can be slow, and that's framework or language agnostic. Your code can be slow due to so many reasons, right? If you are normalizing your data in an endpoint and that data has billion records, right, or whatever, then your architecture is wrong, right? So your API can be slow because your architecture is wrong, right? You're doing certain things in places where you shouldn't do them. Maybe you should do this thing in your data warehouse. You get what I mean? So, for example, I worked in one of the companies a couple of years ago in a pharmaceutical industry, and in pharmaceutical industry, you're working with these petabytes of data. They have like a bunch of Excel sheets that these robotics machines spit out. Then you have to take this data, you have to store it as part of some database. Then you use APIs, right? And what I've noticed back then is that they're doing a lot of architectural things wrong. So they're normalizing the data. The API fetches, I don't know, 15 gigs of data or something like that, and then they kind of link the IDs in the code, and then they respond somewhere, right? So let me show you a very very kind of common issue that a lot of APIs do, right? And this is very common when you're working with very bad APIs, right? You have an endpoint, right? You have like, you know, /foo, right? And this endpoint, right, has to talk to 3 different services or 2. So this endpoint has to fetch data from service 1, service 2, and service 3, right? Or whatever. It doesn't matter. Let's imagine they're just 2, right? So this endpoint now fetches this data, data 1, data 2, loops through, you know, records, and then responds with something, right? So no matter what language you're using, right, no matter how low level it is, this could have been way better if this data was normalized, then replicated or saved somewhere. And then your API would just say, you know, hey, give me X data, and then respond, right? This is what APIs are for. Sure, you can have some minimal business logic here, you can have some middleware, or you can have some biz logic, right? But your API shouldn't be linking 5 billion records together and then responding, right? That's very slow, right? So there's so many things that can be wrong in your whole infrastructure or your architecture, right? So your API should really be like a bridge between some client and some services, right? But it should, in ideal scenario, do the minimum. So this guy here should just be a glue between user and data, right? So if your data is not normalized, if these 2 databases have some shitty data, this guy is going to suffer, and then this guy is going to suffer. But if you have a data science team, you have some data pipeline, you use data form or something like that to normalize, clean up, enrich your data and stuff, then this guy can just be like, oh yeah, user wants apples. There you go, right? Here, sure, you might have some security, right? You might have that on your gateway, but you can hear you'll be like, is this user logged in? Does the user have a role? Whatever, you're gonna have some middleware, right? But this thing here should do minimum work possible, right? If not, then who cares if it's Node.js or Go, right? Sure, there's going to be differences in performance, right? But still, you're doing so much stuff in here, right? And then you're failing there anyway. So you're going to fail with any language, right? So this is how I think about it, right? For me, the client really should be as dumb as possible, get as ideal data as possible, and show it. This guy, API, should also be as dumb as possible, minimal, biz logic, get the data, forward the data, or whatever it's doing, right? If you can accomplish, right? If you can accomplish these things in your client is just a view, this guy delivers the data, and these guys here you might have a bunch of things, right? Hey, you know, we have data from 2 databases. Well, import them in the BigQuery, for example. Clean it up, enrich, whatever, and create a table for that combination of the of the 2, right? Now, basically, your API really doesn't give a crap about these 2 guys, right? You have a data warehouse, you have a BigQuery client here, and you're like, give me X by ID, right? And this process happens synchronized every few hours on your whatever, somewhere in your infrastructure, whatever. You might have 15 different databases. But this guy shouldn't be talking to 15 of these different databases and doing these computations here. This is what BigQuery, Snowflake, and these big data warehouses are for, right? And then in front of this, you would have data form, and you would have all of these micro jobs. For example, you know, get data from X, get data from Y. You would have these small data form tasks, and then you would be like clean up data, enrich data, you know, I don't know, relate data, enrich data, right? And then you would store it in here, right? This is just a big picture. I'm not saying you should do everything like this. The point is somebody asked about the APIs, right? And again, no matter what your API technology is, the bottleneck of your API is always going to be the services that your API is talking to. So if I'm to summarize this, you could say, if the services that your API is talking to are quick, have low latency, and give your API what your API actually needs, an API can be merely a proxy of some sort with some other security measures, you're great. That's the point. And if you have some, you know, gateway in front of your front-end facing API, you have some gateway that checks the role, security, you know, authorization and stuff, even better. Then this guy is just like, hey, BigQuery or whatever, give me that, and hey, client, take this, right? So this is going to heavily depend on so many other factors other than your programming language, right? So you know, it's basically to say you have to optimize these things on a right level. And usually this optimization is not really done here. It's done in your services that your API is interfacing with. So if your API is talking to a shitty API that's just built terribly, you can't do much. You're a victim of that bad API. And your API is going to suffer simply because the way that you have to... So actually two things. The biggest disaster you can have is have a terrible database, whatever, schemas or design, right? So this is probably one of the worst enemies of inefficient APIs. Because if you don't design your data model properly, then your API is going to suffer. You can't do much. So if you're using MongoDB to build a social platform, you're effed, right? If you're using a wrong database for a problem, you're messed up. No language in the API is going to help you because now you have to populate, loop through nested objects, etc., etc. So if you do this thing properly, this almost gets irrelevant. Because now you can build such a stupid microcontrollers in your API. Give me this by ID. Give me that by ID. But if this guy has to query some database doing 15 joins to get what one needs, then it's tragedy, right? So that's why I say to optimize this guy, you have to optimize these guys, not vice versa. You can write your API in assembly. It's still gonna be shitty because of these things, right? Yeah, that's how it is. That's how I think at least about it. Hey, Metal Fan, got a question. I'm learning backend. Seaplane, good evening. Let me, give me 1 second. Let me just read that question. I'm just gonna switch to this. Hey, Metal Fan. Hey, Metal Fan, I got a question. I'm learning backend. I got database with 1.7 million rows. Which concept should I look into to be a build search queries for all of the rows? Well, I mean, you have to index that somehow. I mean, 1.7 million isn't that much, right? It's relatively small amount of data, I would say. But which concept should I look into to build search queries for all of the rows? I'm not sure what you mean by build search queries, right? But you have to index the data somehow, right? Depending what the data is. So if you gave us how your tables look like, then you would... and then, of course, depending what the database you're using, because you haven't told us much, right? You said, I got a database. Which database? Is it, schemaless? Is it like... It's crashing when fetch all of the rows. Yeah, it's a Postgres database with 1.7 million rows, okay? Well, then you have to cluster, or you have to index your database, right? You have to index your record by something, right, that you want to search for. So if you want to implement search based on I want to search, users by name, then you would index that table by name, right? So you would duplicate a bit of data, but then it would work faster. Or you could have a different service for search, right? So you could use Elasticsearch, for example. So all of the things that you do have consequences, right? So you could improve your searching a lot by introducing another service, but that adds obviously another technology you have to maintain and potentially pay for, etc., right? So, but indexing is the most common way to search, right? And think of indexing like a phone book or whatever, right? You have A, B, C, D, right? Or imagine you are in a cargo hold, whatever, and you have when you go to IKEA, in IKEA they have A, B, C, D, right? So they tell you, you want to buy this table, yes? Go to the row, X, whatever, label, whatever, C or whatever, right? And I mean, you should not be fetching 1.7 million records at the first place, right? So, I mean, I don't see ever a case where you would want to fetch 1.7 million things at once, right? I don't know why would you do that, right? Unless you're trying to search locally in your code, right? Well, I mean, most databases spam, they index by ID. So, for example, by default in MongoDB indexes things by default by the ID, right? And that's why, for example, if you're using Mongo, it's the quickest way to search is by the ID, because the ID itself is built in such a way. So if you take a look at the structure of a MongoDB, for example, ID, you're going to notice that each of the 4 characters in that 12-character ID represent one 4 characters represents your, for example, MAC address of your Ethernet adapter, let's say. Another one represents the date. So they can use the ID to very efficiently kind of cluster your data, right? So the topic is, somebody says, I have 1.7 million records. How do I implement search properly? Yeah. But that's about the indexing stuff. What font are you using in the VS Code? Give me 1 second. Font. Let me just copy it for you. All right, any other questions? Yeah, not fire code, no, Fira code, Fira. Let's see if there are any other interesting remarks. It's quite an interesting discussions today. I like it a lot. Let's see if there's any more questions. Intel or AMD for CPU? Intel. I have a 16-core Intel CPU here now, so I don't know. Intel seems more reliable, but I'm happy that AMD exists because we need competition. AMD has been doing really well lately, so yeah, you're probably the red guy, exactly. Auto mode once again, yeah. But I love the discussions. I hope that I truly hope that we get more than AMD and Intel, right? Because prices of CPUs, motherboards. So one thing that I respect the AMD for is that AMD, since Ryzen 3, they promised that they will not be changing their CPU socket on their motherboards. The reason why I hate Intel is because every time they release a new socket, you have to buy a new motherboard. So you might have invested 1,000 euros in a top-notch overclocking motherboard 2 years ago. Then they release a new CPU, and you're like, "Oops, you have to change the motherboard, right?" So it's like terrible, right? And this is what I respect. That's what I respect AMD for. At least they promised, "Hey, we're gonna keep, the same, you're going to be able to reuse your motherboard with a new CPU, right?" So that I think is really nice. It's really nice. All right. Well, yeah, let's keep on going. If you have any questions, especially if you're new, please feel free to ask. I'm very happy to answer. I didn't play the sax on the stream, but we could do that. I didn't play it yet on the stream. I'm still, it's my first month. I even have a YouTube channel that I made for it. Let me show you. Just don't laugh. So I started playing saxophone like 3 weeks ago. And you can actually see this is my YouTube channel. So you can see yesterday it was the 22nd day. So, but I'm not gonna share this with you, just because I don't want you to laugh at me. But yeah, I've been. This is just for me. This is just archives from me, so I can compare my growth every month or every week and stuff like that, right? But yeah, that's what it is. I can actually pause this. I don't know if you can actually hear it. This is called saxomute. So saxophone is a very loud instrument. So I had to invest like 500 euros to buy this saxomute. So you put your saxophone inside, so you can practice at home. So you can see here, you put your saxophone inside because it's super loud instrument, right? So when I bought it 3 weeks ago, I couldn't play because I didn't want to disturb my neighbors, my wife and my kid. And then I bought this thing that basically, right? I did go outside. I mean, if I go back to my channel, I do play by the sea. So first day of my sax, let me show you. That was actually quite interesting. So if I go to all of my 22 days of saxophone, you can see here that I usually go by the beach. So this is where I live in Copenhagen. I live by the beach. So I would just sit here. You can see in a hat. And these are the first days. This is like wait. You can also see here. No, videos are public. Videos are public. So you can see this is the harbor where I live. But this is good. Like so you know that I'm the guy that always says I talk a lot about personal responsibility, continuity, discipline, right? I do this for myself. I just made it public. Maybe it incentivizes somebody. But you can see if you compare the video 1, so 3 weeks ago, and you compare my video 22, you're gonna see a massive difference. And this channel is basically the best showcase of discipline. If you employ 1 hour, 2 hours a day for 3-4 weeks into anything, you're gonna see massive results. That can be programming, it can be saxophone, it can be Chinese language, whatever it is, right? So this channel for me is also often a reminder is that you compare yourself 3 weeks ago and today, and you see a huge, massive difference, right? So that's why I basically do it, right? I do it because I want to be able to nothing beats consistency, because, a lot of people are looking for this secret thing, So try it yourself. You have a cell phone. You don't have to put it on YouTube, right? You can just have it on your cell phone, and you're gonna be very, very, yeah. Exactly. All right. I didn't write any code today, but please keep up with the questions. I like them a lot. And let me put the volume down a bit. I'm using this latest Razer Kaio Pro Ultra. This is what I'm using. I think it was like, yeah, this is what I'm using. I used to have DSLR camera behind the screen, and then I switched to this because it's USB plug. It's just very and it's really an amazing camera. I don't know why they do this stupid marketing, man. Come on, man. An average gamer doesn't look like this, man. Shut up. Oh yeah, hello guys. I'm an average gamer. I completely look like this in my chair. But anyway, so it's you can see it's a 4K camera, right? So that's why. But thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. Huh. Wow, okay. What? Sorry guys, give me 1 second. Let me just switch to this thing. Yeah, because I pay for YouTube Premium. Okay, so let me do some coding as well. It's been all right, let me do some coding as well. So what I'm actually going to do today, and that's what I planned, but then you guys had a lot of awesome discussions. I like that. It's good to be back streaming. I missed it. Dude, like, I dropped Spotify years ago. Literally years ago. All right, so what I wanted to do here, there are a few things here that I haven't finished. And some of the things that also I broke when I switched the whole project to... Yeah, Andy again, exactly. So with this alto saxo mute lead, they can't hear me. But before I bought this, and it was more expensive than the saxophone, now even my wife can barely hear me in the next room. Okay, where is this? Is it this? I mean, the thing is, are you even a hipster if you're not using Spotify, right? So that is the question. Are you even a hipster, right? Do you even have these stickers on your laptop, right? That is the question. We have another question. And the question is, I want to buy a Udemy course about Node.js. I already know Node and I know how to use it, but I want to buy the course to learn more stuff or see how the person thinks and how he writes code. Do you think it's a waste of time? I think Udemy is amazing. I have a lot of courses on Udemy. I think Udemy is, how would I put it? It's really a steal. Udemy is a platform that I can probably praise the most, right? Udemy is, it's so cheap because every few weeks they have these sales where you can get a course for $10. I mean, $10 is a worth of coffee here in Denmark, right? So no matter what, it's absolutely worth it. You cannot really learn how a person thinks by necessarily watching a course to say, I think. Because you also, yeah, but it's absolutely worth it, yes. So Udemy is like 100% worth it. I would definitely go for it, yes. Yeah, Copenhagen, man, is super expensive. Super expensive. All right, sorry. So what did I want to do here? I'm completely distracted, but it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to try out a few things. I wanted to finalize these things. So I want to basically just improve this dashboard a little bit, and then we're going to start, soon we're going to start actually building some new features as well, but more on that probably another time. So right now I just want to figure some stuff out in here. Nice, that's exactly what I wanted. Super cool. Okay, good. So now that's a little bit more apparent there. What is adding this gap here? I just want to check. All right, so we have this stuff. Ouch. Yeah, I don't like that at all, actually. I'm just gonna nuke. So I'm gonna clean some of the stuff up here because it's not great. It's gonna break some dashboards, of course, but we want to do this a little bit better and systematically. I'm just gonna get rid of this stuff. What is this? This is profile settings. Okay, yeah, that I don't like either. There's a lot of this random stuff. Let's nuke this and let's do it better. Let's do it systematically, as I said. So now we should have expected. Numinex, man, I love you, dude. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming, my bro. And then if we go to this dashboard layout, as I called it, let's see what we have here. I'm just gonna do one random thing. Thank you everybody for your follows, appreciate it. Didn't I call it dashboard layout or something? What? Yeah, oh, dashboard list layout. Okay, I see. So this is how I use it. Okay, cool. Is this an open source project? Unfortunately not, but there's a bunch of open source libraries that I built. Bunch, okay, that's an overstatement. But the UI library that I'm using is open source. You can access it on Yale Programmer Network here. And you can also, yeah, there's things over here. And there's few libraries like this one, the core library, all the components and stuff that I'm using here. I built them, so this is the library. And you can actually check all of the components in a storybook here. So yeah. So, but the core project is not open source, no. Unfortunately. Maybe one day, who knows? Never say never, right? Okay, so that's good actually. No, that's great. That's super. That is. I mean, spam TV, right? We have to reach a point where people even want to log in and just that, right? So I don't want to, you know, I need to be realistic, right? I mean, even you guys who know me, you're not logging in, which is, of course, understandable because you also want to have a reason why, right? And getting to that point of having enough of content is the hardest thing building any platform, right? Because you don't have a reason to do so unless there is content. So it's a chicken and egg problem, right? So I'm not worried about money because I don't do this right now for money, but who knows? Isn't this the header? Give me 1 second. On item create. Yeah, this is the header, right? Yeah, it is. Okay. The thing is, right? When I feel that this platform is at the place where it does provide sufficient value, I will acknowledge that myself. Right now, it doesn't yet. And it will. I'm sure it will, but it doesn't yet. Are you using Vite? Yes, I am. I'm using Vite for sure, yes. Just give me 2 seconds. So dashboard header. I see. So this is where I'm using it. So that is the problem, right? Shit. So this is a little bit problematic. It's not really problematic, but it kind of could be better, right? Because in theory, right, this thing is using so this dashboard header would have been better if it was inside of the dashboard layout, right? I mean, we have the dashboard list layout. So maybe we could have a dashboard layout. Wait a minute, where is this? Let's inspect that, right? So let's just draw that, because I don't actually know. So we have a dashboard. Let's just figure this one out together. Then we have a sidebar. Then we have this. We have this header. Let's call it dashboard header, right? So we have the dashboard header that spans full width, and then we have this dashboard layout component, dashboard list layout. And the list layout basically is used to show all of the lists in your dashboard. So articles, bookmarks, meetups, courses, whatever feature we have, right? So all of these are, this is using that layout. This is using the layout, right? Okay. So we could have this as a base dashboard layout, right? The problem with that is that, let's take a look at that. So if we go to a dashboard here, this is our dashboard, and I'm almost certain this is where our sidebar is, right? Let's take a look at that. Tabs. Yeah, so this is for the mobile. Yeah, this is the sidebar. Okay, so let's clean this up a bit. I think it's so let's break this a little bit out so we can do. Well, I don't need Next.js. I'm using plain React. Why would I need Next.js for what? Why would I use? I mean, don't take me wrong, please. Okay, I'm being a little bit passive aggressive. I'm sorry for that. So it's a genuine question that I want to see if you're able to answer it. So why would I use Next.js over just plain React? And I know one thing that you're gonna say, and I'm gonna agree with that thing. But if you can, I would like us to have a discussion. So basically, you're asking Alex, why are you using plain React Vite over Next.js, right? and let's discuss it. Let's kind of try to get to some middle ground. So I guess you're saying I should be using Next.js. So the question is, let's see if you can tell me why. Why would I be using Next.js? Or to at least to say, what do you think the value is? Ah, you don't know which one to use. I see. No, please don't take me wrong. I'm not suggesting that you're saying that you're telling me to use it. So I just thought you already had an opinion, because a lot of people come to the stream and they ask me, why are you not using Next.js, right? And in many cases, right? So the thing is, right? So again, going back to the previous. One of the previous things I said about the video I made called influencer-driven development, right? Several people before have came to my stream and said, why are you using Next.js? Why are you not using Next.js, right? Why are you using plain React, right? And then I asked the people, right, well, why would I use Next.js, right? And many of them don't have an actual response, right? So let's elaborate that just for 2 minutes, right? So Next.js basically, right, is a server-side rendered React, right? So instead of rendering the stuff in your browser doing a lot of work, your server renders the HTML payload and then delivers it to the front end. Then there's a mixture, there's a hybrid part of this. You can do a little bit of both. Your server can deliver some payload with an extra JavaScript, and then so you can have, kind of this hybrid places where people fall mostly, because, they want the user experience UX of a server-side application, but they also want the quick, faster renders, maybe due to the SEO reason, search optimization, right? But unfortunately, a lot of the people who claim these things, they don't actually use it for that reason. They use it just because it's a new shiny thing, right? Keep in mind that server-side rendering is not free, right? If your server has to not just talk to your services, but also render HTML, which is actually quite extensive, scaling these things also becomes harder, and your server bill becomes more expensive. You couple your front end and back end, and we go back in time 20, 30 years. I mean, WordPress and Joomla and E107 and a bunch of these things have been server-side rendering. PHP has been server-side rendering pages for decades. So did Visual Basic, C# and stuff like that. So server-side rendering or Next.js is nothing new. That's how internet initially worked, right? Now you could say, hey, Alex, well, I wanted to use Next.js because SEO matters a lot to me. I want Google and Bing and all of these search engines to index my pages faster. And to some degree, that's true, right? It does help. Modern search engines can also index your Ajax-led sites like single page apps like React and Angular and stuff. Anyway, so if you really need to absolutely squeeze in these SEO things, then absolutely go for Next.js. Now, of course, there's a lot of negatives, which is why I don't use it. All of these tools do a lot of magic, right? Next.js basically is a mixture of super intelligent hacks that people made work, right? But it doesn't come without a cost. It comes with a huge cost. Again, for your server cost, it's this bundled thing that now some libraries work, some libraries don't work. I personally hate file-based routing. Some people are talking about the file-based routing as a feature. It's not a bug. I think it's a terrible idea. Mapping your file locations to your route is terrible. It doesn't help. It couples certain things which shouldn't matter at all. What I'm delivering on /x should be in no way coupled where my file is. That's completely idiotic idea in my opinion. So I hate it. I always hated it. I hated it from the FTP times, file transfer protocol times, when we would drag our stuff, right? But in simple words, if you're learning React, just learn React. Just learn a view library, learn how to write a component, learn how to use map and reduce, and learn the reconciliation algorithm, learn how these tools work. Then as your complexity grows, add a state machine, or whatever, whatever. So Next.js is just a tool with a bunch of different coupled ideas. It has some really good ideas like image optimization. It has a lot of great things, don't take me wrong. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just in many cases when you talk to people, they can't exactly tell you why they're using. They're just coming up and saying, why are you not using it? But then when I reverse that question and say, why are you using it over such a simple thing as React, they don't have a response, right? Usually it's a SEO response, but that also doesn't drink much water, under quotes, right? So if you want to learn React, start with React. Maybe one day you might need Next.js or some server-side rendering, maybe not, right? But I'm sure that at this point, you don't need it. So yeah, that's my response. Keep things simple, right? The best advice I can give to any of you is your job as a professional always should be, you should be obsessed by simplicity. If you can make things simple, you're going to be an amazing developer. You're going to grow very fast in your career. Nobody except sweaty 17 years old developers are getting turned on by complexity. Every professional, CTO, team lead, tech lead, adores simplicity. So it adores people who do not introduce another tool. We adore people who do not install an additional dependency or come up and propose another abstraction over something, because all of these things come with cost. So nobody cares. Nobody is waking up and thinking, oh my God, I can use this library in such a complex way. I'm so smart. Nobody cares about that, right? So if you want to be a good developer, focus on trying to make things so stupidly simple, and you're gonna have a great time. Otherwise, it's not good. Simplicity is everything, really. The thing is, spam TV, so you know what's the problem? I don't disagree with you, right? The problem is that you need to build a large-scale enterprise application in that and then form an opinion. So that is the problem, right? The thing is, like, as I always said, and please internalize this, this is the most important advice you can get. Unless or until you use a technology in production with a team of people, that you have to collaborate that technology over, most of the opinions we have are useless, right? So we can have opinions. You know how they say opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. You can form an opinion on whatever you want. You can see this bottle in 2 seconds and say this bottle sucks. That's your human right. But until you hold this bottle and drink water out of it, right? Your opinion cannot stand in any reasonable discussion because you haven't actually held this bottle and you haven't tried drinking the water out of this bottle. And then you didn't wash this bottle and you didn't see how this bottle works in your dishwasher. Does this paint falls off because dishwasher temperature is 70 degrees? You get my point metaphorically, right? So we can form any opinions, but until you use a technology in production and face its goods and bads with the users, with the team, it's useless, right? The opinion is useless. And that is the biggest problem, right? You need a React router DOM, yes. The thing is, like, so the beauty of Vue libraries, the beauty of Vue.js, the beauty of reactjs, right, is this. Look, this is React, right? This is Vue.js or React or whatever. And React, really, what is React? It's a component, right? React is a rendering view library, and you can make a component, right? And you can handle component state, synchronous and asynchronous one. And this is really all that the React is. That's why it's such a small library. React is like, what, 3 kilobytes or something, right? And then you say, well, I need these components to work together. I want to compose these. I want to do function composition, component composition. So I want to combine these components into a bigger picture. I want to build a page by composing components. But then I need a user somewhere to click on the main menu and go to a different page under quotes that has different set of components combined together, right? So that's really all that there is to it. So you have page 1 and page 2. And then when I click on page 2, it's actually only these 2 components on page 2. That's component composition, right? Right? So just to recap. So again, a React is just a view library on its own. It just knows how to render some JavaScript and then render it into HTML, right? And then you combine these multiple components together, and then you say, okay, so these 3 components, aka component composition, now look to me like this is my page, right? But I would like to have another page now, so how do I do that? How can now I have different views, pages? How can I achieve that? Well, I need a router. I need a router. And what is a router? Well, a router is something that maps the URL to HTML. Map URL to some HTML, right? So when I click on /home, I want to render this HTML. And when I click to /about, I want to render this. So router really is a mapping between your, let's say, on a low level HTML when it's rendered, right? So then you say, how do I do that in React? I use React router DOM. Why DOM? Well, because it stands for document object model, right? And document object model is how we interface with the HTML document in the browser. So Alex, are you saying that there's more ways to use React? Yeah, there's React Native. You can render React to the native devices. So that's why React team has broken these things down into different routers. So for the browser, for the web pages, we use React Router DOMs. And what is this React Router DOM doing? Well, underneath, it's really using HTML5 history API. And it's making me, it's making my browser history filled, history.push, pull, replace, blah, blah, blah. And then that's how I can map things to each other. So when I click page 1, I'm going to use these 3 components together. Right? And that's really all that there is when it comes to single page applications, really. This applies, what I just explained applies to every single library or UI framework out there, like Angular or whatever, right? But without all of this noise, right? Without this noise, I don't think it's complicated at all. I think it cannot be, it's so simple. Because React, again, just knows how to render some JavaScript, some JSON or some JavaScript object into an HTML. So what React really does, it says, underneath I have, React create element, which takes in some stuff, which is, just abstracted with this called JSX. And this object that has some properties is really translated. And this is what XHTML is doing as well. This is what every single library ever in history of UI has done. So here in React has, I have this JSON and I'm going to produce some HTML out of it. That's what React does. That's where it ends. And then it provides hooks and state things, right? And then, as I said, then you grow it in complexity. You say, well, I don't need just one page. I need multiple pages and I want to be able to switch between them. Well, you need a router. And then you say, my state is really complicated. I have a lot of this global state. I have a lot of these things all over the place, but this state needs to be reused all over the place. You maybe need a state machine, a Redux, or maybe you just can use context, or maybe you don't need any of that. So these are the decisions you make as a professional. But the complexity increases as the requirements of your application increase. If you're building a to-do app that has a single view, you don't need a router, you don't need a state machine, you don't need anything. You don't need a You don't need a caching mechanism. You can use literally React, which is 3 kilobytes, and build your to-do app. But if you're building a large-scale internet application with dashboards and massive data and permissions and etc., 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 then your requirements are going to be different, which means you're going to have to install more things, right? Okay, but why? Yeah. Okay, but why instead of the browsers improve the web want to frameworks? But framework is just a set of established patterns that we learned about, right? So I don't think I think in order for you to understand how important frameworks are, you have to make a step back and understand how painful would it be to build things without frameworks. Let me give you an example. Imagine you wanna change your job. You imagine that you work in a company called Foo. And at company Foo, you had your own UI library. You called it Johnny UI. You had your own router, your own blah, blah, blah. Then you moved to company called Bar. At company Bar, they have Nancy UI. Completely different. Router is different, syntax is different, rendering engine is different. Now, Shoot'ems has to learn everything from scratch. What does this mean for the business? It means tragedy. Imagine how long would it take us, and it already takes way too long. Imagine how long would it take an average developer or a team to build anything if you had to learn 5 million different routers, right? So frameworks exist not because some sweaty developer wants that. It's because business requires it. It's the same reason why a hammer exists. It's the same reason why a jigsaw exists. Because if I had to hit a nail in this wall, I'm not going to go get some stone out of the mountains and make my own hammer. That would be ridiculous, right? So the reason why frameworks exist is business. You need to ease the hiring process, hiring people. How do we onboard people very quickly? Well, we constrain them in this set of constraints, in this framework, in these patterns that we know that they work. And now now we don't have Johnny UIs and Nancy UIs anymore. Now we have few established patterns that people can learn and get their hands dirty the first day when they go to a new work, right? You can already push your first commit, right? So frameworks must exist. Not for the reasons that a sweaty developer might imagine, it's because of business. Because keep in mind that computers exist to support business, not vice versa. If you read the history of computers and why we built them initially, it was money, right? And if you don't trust me, right, try to build your own tools. And you know what you're going to realize? So say, why do we use frameworks? Why don't we just, why don't I use HTML5 history API? Why don't I use plain JavaScript, right? Why do I need frameworks, right? I'm going to build my own rendering. I'm going to build my own fetching mechanism. I'm going to use some HTTP-based client library in the browser. And you know where you would end? You would end with replication of modern frameworks. You would search, you would use ChatGPT, you would go to Stack Overflow, you would build these things, and then you would realize, well, actually what I want is React, or Vue, or Angular, right? So it's very even immature to question frameworks, right? And again, if you disagree, do this and see where you ended compared to existing things, right? And try hiring people. So build your own tooling and try hiring people. So when Nancy and John come to an interview, tell them, in order for you to pass, you have to use our own Nancy.js. And they're like, man, but I've never seen Nancy.js in my life. How will I build an app with it, right? I think you get the point, right? Yep, that concludes it. Give me 2 seconds. All right. Is Vue similar to React? Yeah, Vue is very similar to React. Vue, I actually met even Vue in Paris maybe 5-6 years ago. And I spoke to him briefly after the presentation, the guy who made Vue.js. He's a very nice guy. And he was so Vue.js is heavily inspired by React and Angular. So the whole Vue.js 1 idea was heavily inspired by Angular and React. Most of the things that Vue.js 1 had was inspired by these existing tools. All right, that's what it is. That's how it is. What do you recommend? It doesn't really matter. Whatever works for you. Operating system has merely a consequence on anything. This is my streaming computer. I use Mac at work. I use MacBook Pro. This is my shitty laptop with stickers for work. I have a Windows laptop that I run Linux on. I have a Raspberry Pi K3s Kubernetes cluster running Linux. I use all operating systems, right? And you have to. If you want to play video games, you're not going to be playing them on Mac or Linux, right? But whatever works for you, it doesn't really matter. Any operating system is good. Windows is very stable today. It's amazing. Mac OS is amazing. Linux is amazing for some things. So whatever works, I don't think it matters. If you're a C# developer, you're probably better off using Windows than anything else, right? So it also depends. If you're a C developer, C++, you probably want to use Linux, right? So it depends what you're doing, right? If you're a designer, you probably want to use a Mac, right? If you're a web developer, you probably want to use a Mac, right? So it really depends what it is what is the problem that you're having. That's really all that there is, right? Yeah. I don't think that Windows has any bloatware. I think, again, you're mostly influenced by the community, right? This is, again, watch my video. I have a video on YouTube called Influencer Driven Development. There's no bloatware on Windows. I'm running Windows now, and I'm running Ubuntu on it, so all of this stuff that you see is running on Windows Linux subsystem. I shut down this computer every 3 months. So I don't know what, I don't think there's any bloatware. If you mean it comes with some bloatware, if you're right, you can remove that bloatware in like 5 seconds. You go to remove and right. So I have to disagree with you there that there's bloatware. I haven't felt that. I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I genuinely disagree. I like it myself. But again, who am I to tell you that, right? If you don't like it, I respect that. It would be kind of, in a way, almost silly to it's not about a disagreement. It's about, I guess, taste, if I may, right? No. But it's like I genuinely like it, and I'm not shitting you. But I also love my Mac a lot. I love my Linux for my servers. I would never host any server anywhere other than Linux. So it really boils down to the problem, right? I use Redux RTK, yeah. What the fuck happened here? I use Redux RTK, yeah. Oh, 1 second. I mean, MC, I agree with you 100%, man. And I don't do that on Windows. That's why I'm saying I'm using Windows Linux subsystem. So all of this code that I'm writing now, I'm practically writing it in Linux. So I don't disagree with you, right? It's just all of these have, I mean, none of these systems is perfect, man. And like DNT said, Windows since day one has been made to work on every single hardware for every single user. And that is the burden that they have to carry with, right? Linux is mostly made for professionals. Mac is running on a single hardware, right? So the team at Apple has to make an operating system that runs on a single piece of hardware. Windows, it runs on everything and it runs properly, right? So I mean, sure, I can jump on a wagon of criticism. Of course, it's easy to criticize and anything and everything today, pretty much. It also sells really well. But we have to understand these basic things, right? Windows runs and Linux, right? They run on every single hardware out there. Mac OS is so well optimized. Why? Because they have to optimize it for a single hardware that there is, right? And that is a huge difference. So I'm saying this as a developer, not as a I don't give a shit about Microsoft or Apple, right? Try building a website that works in every single browser, just a website, or that works in a single browser, just a stupid thing as a website. That's simple. Now imagine building an operating system that needs to support all the drivers, all the hardware, etc., etc., etc. I mean, you have to give these guys a huge credit. Like, I don't know. For me, it's incredible. Yeah, I mean, again, but the initial question was like, which operating system do I suggest? And I don't suggest anything really. I use all three of them by accident. Not, I wish that I could use one, and that would be great. But yeah. Wow, what the hell? I think I'm so distracted. We had so many discussions. What is the benefit? I mean, depending how you define benefit, right? Like, there's no benefit versus running the native system. So, because this thing is now running, in theory, a virtual machine, right? So the benefit is that I can use Windows as a host system, for example, to run some software that doesn't exist on Linux. I can play video games, right? So it depends. So if the question is there any benefit over running it over plain native Linux, and I don't need any tools that run on Windows, then answer is no. You should definitely not use Windows Linux subsystem. But if you want to run Windows and still develop stuff on Linux, then it's amazing. So that is basically. But other than that, there's none. Redux seems complex in terms of dispatch. Redux is very simple if you understand it. Redux is very simple. If you understand the flux pattern, then Redux is so simple, super simple. What the hell is happening here? I think my brain is just completely absent. We discussed so many things. I don't even know where I am right now. Oh, I see. I mean, I love my Linux. Again, I would never run any server on anything other than Linux. But again, the operating system in 2024 for many things, for the most part, it doesn't really matter, right? Whatever runs stable, I use. If it's not stable, I don't use it. So I don't allow myself to create. I don't allow myself to become this type of sect, almost like this. Satanistic cult of some sort. Like, I must love this and hate that. That's very childish, man. At one point in your career, you have to overcome this, right? And just grow up, right? I'm 35 years old, man. I'm not going to wake up and hate on something because I must have that feeling in me, right? I mean, that's why, I mean, for those of you who've been part of this stream for a long time, you know me. I say things the way that I honestly think that they are. If something is bad and I used it, that is the huge exception that we have to understand. You cannot form opinions on things that you don't have no experience on. At least you can, but don't share them. And yeah, all of these 3 operating systems we discussed, all of them work for me really good. I had no problems with them. So that's my take, honest, genuine take. That's how it is. Now maybe I'm supposed to hate a little bit on it. Who knows? But no, I'm not. Pretty much, exactly. I try not to get influenced in general about the community, right? By the community, because there's too many opinions all over the place, right? And some of these opinions are not rooted in any reality. They're just all right, actually, I'm completely distracted. Let's see if there's any more questions. Otherwise, I'm going to round up. Let's see if there's any more questions. I'm very happy to get into some of these discussions. They're super awesome. Then I'll code some of this stuff off stream because I'm like completely distracted. This, I mean, D&T, what you said, applies to the whole life to every industry and especially to programming, right? So that's why I'm trying, at least through this stream, and I've been working in this career professionally for almost 17 years. I'm trying to really, if anything, leave. Even if you come here for once for this stream and never come back, my goal is always to tell people that a lot of these things that you watch on YouTube, a lot of these influencers trying to sell you crap, it doesn't really matter. Build things. Try to provide value to your company, to yourself. Try to build value to customers. Customers buy products that solve small pains in their everyday thing. And that's really all that there is. Programming languages, tools, databases, they come and go. Especially today in modern development, today this language is the best ever. Then in 3 days it's another one. So try not to be that developer. Try to build things. Try to be a developer that can show things that you've done instead of things just saying them. Because talking crap and reading articles and then repeating them like a parrot, that doesn't really work with any reasonable people. You can do that maybe on the internet and appear cool and smart and stuff, but in reality, it's really about your actions and what you have achieved. And if you haven't built anything, then who cares what you think? I mean, unfortunately, sorry to say this, but that's just how it is. So, because it's so easy to form theoretical opinions of things. There's a lot of people coming here. Oh, why are you using Node.js? And then you ask them, have you used Node.js yourself? Oh, well, I didn't, but I read on the Medium article written by John 3317. He said, shut the fuck up, man. I mean, when did you start? I started working when I was 18 or 19 years old. I started working as a Cisco engineer. Then I went to Cisco Academy. I finished CCNA and started CCNP. And I'm 35 now. So I've been working pretty much since I was 18. I studied for a couple of years after high school. And then I dropped out because I didn't need it. I was already programming since I was very young. I started with Pascal, COBOL, Visual Basic 6. PHP 3. Those were my first languages. I think my first programming language was Pascal. Yeah, I mean, as you grow in your career, right? As you grow as an engineer, as you build products, as you work for different companies, right? You are taught indirectly, implicitly to focus on value, right? Then you start realizing that making right technical decisions in certain areas of the software does matter. Choosing the right database, making some of these core, designing your data model properly. But at the end of the day, the hardest thing in software engineering industry is first running a company and not knowing what you should do, but when you should do it, right? So every single product manager, every single company out there that competes against a bunch of other companies, right? They know what they want to do. It's just what it is that you want to do at a certain time. And this is where the best product managers on the planet are very good at. It's not about, every single company has a huge backlog of things that they want to do. It's like, but what it is that we should do now, right? So these are the challenges of businesses. That's the same when in the previous discussion we had about frameworks, somebody said, why do we need frameworks? We need frameworks for business. We need them for easier hiring. We need them to constrain people of things not going out of control, et cetera, et cetera. So as you grow, in my experience in this industry, and I guess in every other industry, you realize that really what you do is everything is for the business, right? You need to pay those salaries. You need to make these customers happy. There's a lot of competition, and you want to keep solving their problem, right? So this is what a great engineer means to be, right? And you will, if you know how to write some decent code, you will write decent code in any language, right? With or without framework. Right, and people have been doing this. This is not my personal opinion. There's 90% of websites still are using jQuery, and half of the internet is still running on WordPress, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the Rust and Zig are not something that the community craves for. It's the products that we build that customers crave for. And it's really like, once you kind of internalize this as a developer, then your perception changes, and you genuinely go to work. And, if you're using objectives and key results at work, if you're, solving problems using an OKR framework, then you start focusing more on this, right? Versus, that's really is. And technologies come and go, right? That's always has been. 20 years ago, we thought that nothing ever is going to beat jQuery or C okay, nothing still beats C, let's face that. But you get what I mean. And so these things are always dynamic. They will always change. What you might perceive as a great code today, in 5 years, somebody is going to read that, or in 3 years, and it's going to say, man, who the hell wrote this crap? This is terrible, right? But this is just dynamics of programming languages. But one thing is constant. It's the value that you have to deliver for your boss or your own company to continue producing money, right? So if you want to be a great software engineer, focus on the problems, right? And then work backwards. This is what Steve Jobs basically said, is like when he founded Apple, right? He said, well, let's start with the problem and then walk backwards to the technology, not vice versa. You're not writing code for the sole sake of writing code, right? So these are the things that, some people mature very early on in their career. They realize this very early. They realize that, and some never realize it, right? And I believe with the growth of AI and it's getting easier and easier and easier to write code, let's face it, right? Then people who don't realize this soon enough, they're going to have a hard time finding any work, right? Because can you traverse a binary tree or write, who cares? Nobody is going to care in a couple of years. Nobody is going to be asking these questions anymore, even. Lead code, whatever, who cares, man, right? Nobody will care, right? But if you establish yourself to be a valuable developer, you put yourself out there, you develop your critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, trying to, when you get a job, you try to care about the product that you're building. I've heard countless times developers saying, oh, I don't care about the product. I'm just here to write code. Well, good luck with that. Good luck in the next 10 years. With that mentality, good luck, right? You're going to need it. That's my take on that. Hello, I see that you're in a Q&A session. Can you tell me what is the best way to persist user data with React? I see that the user credentials persistence local storage is more over there. I mean, you don't want to persist any sensitive data in the front end. So that's the quickest answer is that. Now, what web storage you should use depends on what you need, right? So for example, even if we talk about cookies, you can use cookies in different ways. So for example, if you're using HTTP only cookies, these cookies cannot be accessed by JavaScript. And generally, so if you need to store some JSON web token, some bearer token as we call it, then you would probably want to store that in a HTTP only cookie to prevent some injection attacks, etc., etc. If you want to store some redundant data for the duration of the session, you can use the session storage. If you want to store something redundant as well, you can also use local storage. Keep in mind, local storage has a limit of 5 megabytes, so you cannot. Cookies also have a limit. The string length, I believe, is I don't know how many characters, right? So it depends what the issue. Then, of course, you can use IndexedDB. You can use IndexedDB or reactjs. And IndexedDB is a database. It's like a SQL-lite database inside of the browser. So if you need to do like complex queries in the browser, or IndexedDB is also used by service workers. It's used by it's used for caching and stuff. So it depends what you need, but you never want to store your credentials, and you never have a reason to store your sensitive credentials really anywhere, including other than your database. Yeah. As you said, JSON web stored in HTTP, how come we access it? And you don't access it. Your cookie is generated by your server. So when you log in, you know, when you hit /login, what does your API do? Does this email exist? Yes. Proceed to the next if statement. Does this email and this password that I'm going to unhash now and then compare, does it match? Yes. Great. This user is who is saying that they are. Generate a JSON web token, respond with 200 or 201, and then respond with a cookie, set the cookie in the browser. From that moment on, your front end is sending bearer token as part of each HTTP request that you're sending to that API, right? And then you need to have an endpoint like /me or whatever that checks if the user is logged in. That's how it works. And if the API responds with 401 at one point or 403, then you wanna make your UI react to that and redirect to the login page or whatever, right? So, but when it comes to local storage, yeah, or when it comes to web storage in general, it depends what the problem is. But you never, ever, ever want to store any sensitive data anywhere, let alone in the browser. No. It's just how the browser works. That's just the specification of the HTTP, or I don't know the specification of this thing, but HTTP only cookies are automatically attached to consequential or whatever you say, however you say it, requests sent to that API. So we can, if you want, Google it or search the spec and see how. But yeah, what you need to do in a very abstract way is that HTTP only cookies are just attached to your requests. Yeah. And then, of course, if you want to know why and stuff, you can research the why you want to use these certain strategies for your storage, but that would go beyond this question now. Do we have any interesting remarks? Sorry if I skipped something. A dev first and foremost, the problem solve all the tools. Exactly, pretty much, yes. Well, fellas, yeah, please keep in mind, if you get a chance, sign up on Programmer Network, especially if you're planning to hang out this stream. I would really appreciate it. That's what we're building here. Today, it was really answering questions. But if you get a chance, please, it takes 2 seconds to sign up. I actually hate saying that because there is a link in the about, but I think I need to do better branding on this overlay of mine so you even know that that's what we are. You had a question about Hetzner. I got a question about Hetzner. I'm trying to deploy my API there. Is there some web interface where I can connect the GitHub repo and then run it? Or do I need to use the web GUI that Hetzner has when you click it? There's no such thing on Hetzner, Leo. There's on Hetzner you get a dedicated machine, you get a virtual private server or whatever, and then you have to build your stuff manually, right? To my knowledge, at least, I don't think that Hetzner has. If you want stuff like that, then DigitalOcean would have been a better solution for you. DigitalOcean has an app marketplace where they have some of this, exactly like Flint says, it's pretty much that nails it, yes. Yep. So basically, Leo, what you would do, you would, for example, use Circle CI or GitHub Actions. You would use the SSH GitHub action. You would SSH in your server and stuff like that. So yeah. But okay, guys, this concludes it for me. I had enough. It's a 2-hour stream. It's enough for me. That's on average how long I stream when I stream. What can I say? I really enjoyed the stream. So many great people, so many great discussions. Keep in mind, always, opinions are like buttholes, as I say. Everybody has one. Don't take things that I say as... Take it with a grain of salt. I share things as I believe truly that they are. I clicked on the Programmer Network website, but I see a Reddit-ish website. What exactly is the value of that website? I mean, the value is questionable. Value of any platform out there is very questionable, right? If you can't find the value for yourself, then it probably doesn't have any value, right? In simple words, if I have to sell you the value of a platform that you saw, then you don't have, there's no value for you. I think that would be a genuine and honest response. So if you don't need a profile, developer profile, if you don't feel like writing posts or whatever is valuable to you, then indeed it is not valuable to you, hence you shouldn't sign up. That is literally the fundamental theory of every single product. If you go to a website X and you don't see a value, then there's no value for you, right? So then Tim, there's no value, right, for you. Because value is a very questionable thing anyway. What is the value of Reddit, right? A real tangible value, right? What it is that you get there that you can't get on somewhere else. Probably none, right? Or some, or all of it. Who knows? Depending who you ask, right? That is always the thing, right? The value of Reddit is that it just exists for a long time and they were first, or one of the first, right? That's how it is. That's how it is. Fellas, what can I say? Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. And I wish you best. I don't know if I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. Maybe yes, maybe not. I'm going to go now and be with my wife and kid a little bit. Have a great one, everybody. And I wish you best. Peace out, fellas. Thank you.